All right, everybody, welcome. We are lucky enough to have Michael Wilds here, a very prolific immigration lawyer that comes from second-generation immigration law. He's also the mayor of the city and town where he lives, Englewood, New Jersey, and also teaches business immigration. So he likes to pass his knowledge off to people, which is a great thing. You know, it's knowledge is there to be shared and everything, and that's kind of the idea. So Michael, great to have you here. Thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure as well, Ian.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you on. Well, anyways, so what we're going to be talking about on this interview today is obviously you're a second-generation lawyer. Your dad was quite prolific, represented John Lennon, quite a few other things, which is quite an amazing story. And then, but I am curious, for people that want to start an immigration firm or want to even become lawyers or whatever part of the journey they're on, what would you say to someone that really wants to start a practice and doesn't know where to start, or maybe if they don't even know if they want to become a lawyer or not, because it is a lifelong decision?
So, I have to tell you, it's a labor of love, what I do, and more than just a family affair. I have the vantage point of seeing my dad's 62 plus year career. Thank God he's still with us. And my 30 something plus years of career. Both Dad and I wrote books. And I would say to anybody aspiring in our space, write your own book. In other words, decide each chapter of your life what's important, and find so much happiness in this field, and so many different vantage points. It's so important for you to understand that America's golden doors are not just open to the clients you have, but to the next generation, and you're playing a significant role, not just in helping the lives of the people who pay you handsomely to do that, but in their children and in the next generation, that the way this country is developing itself. So to young people that are embarking in law school just to become immigration lawyers, kudos to you. To those of you that kind of find us by happenstance, hook your wagon up to a guy like me or somebody who's been ahead of you, so that you know what's around the corner, so you don't have to make the same mistakes, and you can avoid pitfalls, particularly in a post-pandemic world. And just know what we do is very special.
I agree. It's extremely special. Like, my grandpa was an immigration lawyer, and he immigrated here when he was 5. So
amazing.
Definitely a meaningful thing for
him. I have the passports of my grandparents with the letter J on it, Jew, and swastikas. And they put Israel for every male and Sarah for every female. And my grandparents and my mom, rest their souls, naturalization certificates. And my great grandparents also. So it's very exciting. My son joined the practice. We have 3 generations now. And this intergenerational experience on immigration is just heartwarming. I met my wife actually in my dad's class. And I now teach the class at Cardozo Law School. I teach 2 classes there. And both of my kids, who are lawyers, took my class. So it hits home in so many ways. And immigration is in our DNA. Fortunate that Dad started a practice. He was head of AILA, the Immigration Lawyers Association, in 1970. I think he's the longest living president, which always gets you nervous because there's always somebody at the front. But what he did was just extraordinary as far as his stewardship for scholarship. I expanded our office into several other states, still working on that. We just opened up shop in Tel Aviv in Israel.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you speak Hebrew?
Yeah, fluently. I break my teeth.
Yeah.
As I say, I break my teeth in it. But one of the things you want to do when you're starting, and I continue to realize that I'm starting. Dad always told me we practice law. He writes with a pencil because we learn from our mistakes. We never perfect the law. We practice it, and it's very exciting to see new beginnings as it is.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating how the whole industry has progressed, and then really with the family history of yours. I mean, it's coming to this country, you really realize firsthand the opportunities you have, and also whenever you see kids that want to do what their parents do, it means that they're leaving a good legacy behind. And so, yeah,
I wrote the foreword to my dad's book, and I spoke of the Sunday experience where I would go into the office. I was a kid, and I would just cut scrap paper, and if I was a good boy. I would get a law book, and my job was to get as many as I could on my shelf. But I went, don't kid myself, just to hold his briefcase, just to spend time with him. My mom made these kosher sandwiches. We went to the waterfall down the block, which thankfully was on. We're still in the same building on 53rd and Madison, where Dad started the practice in 1959.
Wow.
And that tradition is a familial tradition. My partner is kind of like family, and all the staff that have come and gone through the years, I consider them to be an extension of our family as well as our clients. And this is a personal area of law. These are not files. These are people's lives. There are children out there that have been named after me because of experiences that we've had with them in the practice. We're not just dream makers. We've saved people's lives. We've had people, Ian, that were in removal proceedings that were citizens, and having a good eye, reading all the time, and new talent reinvents ourselves with new challenges that immigration presents.
Yeah, and it's a really, really crazy area to navigate. I mean, people think, oh, I'm just going to fill out some paperwork and they'll just let me into the country, and that's kind of it. And then, thankfully, there's experts like you that do all those things. And then, that's really amazing. And then, I guess for other people that really want to work with, clientele kind of like you have, but I mean, you're working in a family business, you have all these things. But for someone that's maybe starting a business, or they already have an established firm and they want to work with maybe higher profile people, or kind of niche down to a certain practice area and working with different people, like what advice would you give them so they can start now, so they can end up having something that you have, like a thriving firm years later that maybe they can pass on to their kids?
I mean, again, I can't help but staying on the personal side of the ledger. I'll never forget every time I'm in the room with my father in the 70s, 80s, 90s, Ruth in a booth. What's Ruth? Ruth was my mom's name, rest her soul, and she's in a booth. She's in a phone booth. And Dad froze. And whoever was talking, he took the phone, because Mom was more important than the client, than any conversation. And he showed that respectability. He always respected the love, life, work balance, and knew where his priorities were. And when he talked to me with the same voice and tone that he spoke to John Lennon, that he spoke to staff, that he spoke to his parents. That same even keel is so, so important. So my advice to young people starting out is, don't lose your humanity. Be the same person you are. That's what important people are going to respect. That's what important people are going to want you to be their advocate. John never called us on a Friday night, because he knew that we were Sabbath observant Jews, and it was critical that we maintained our own ethic and equilibrium despite the onslaught of challenges, the competition that's out there. But don't kid yourself. Celebrity clients will find you. You don't have to go out and find them. And sometimes a lot of them aren't really worth the effort, because they expect you to do everything and not get paid. We have housekeepers and people who are doing more humble work that appreciate us greatly and are more rewarding sometimes than the big VIPs. But there is a delicacy when it comes to the ethical propriety of representing somebody and getting permission for them to talk about your experience publicly. And there is anecdotal content that you have to be familiar with as these as their lives kind of take over newspapers and everything. But you'll graduate when you find your own voice and develop your personality and talent in the law. People will end up finding you. It's not all that it's cut out to be. We've had the good fortune of working with the greatest in sport, entertainment, media, and so forth. The ones that mean the most are the relationships that we develop, no matter how important they are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then I do believe also, you mentioned a second ago, a number of our clients are, Jewish and they choose to observe Shabbat and the other things. So it's really kind of even more important to build a lot of these structures and have those relationships so you can, really be able to even practice properly. That was
They'll also respect you for your independence, your consistency, your genuineness. If they feel that the religious liturgy makes you more of a listener, more character, more compassionate. In our field, we bill by the project, not by the hour, so we have a tendency to develop better relationships. Somebody's going to be looking at their watch thinking you're looking at your watch, and they're not going to exchange the same kind of pleasantries. So the way we deal with people financially also, I'm trying as I get older not to be so transactional, to give people more time, although we have to charge consultation fees and monetize certain platforms. We're always struggling with that balance of trying to give more for less.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of came up with a good point is, at the end of the day, you are running a business, and that doesn't mean you don't have to not care. But how do you kind of find that sweet spot between being profitable and actually building the ideal lifestyle, living kind of that dream you had when they spent 10 years becoming lawyers and getting experienced, to actually, providing a good client experience and, not undermining people and giving them the time that they need to feel valued?
I think lawyers, particularly young ones, and in law school, and I speak to my students frequently about this. I'm teaching over a decade now, is to find your voice. Are you fundamentally a finder, a minder, or a grinder? And where do you want to be? The grinder is the one who knows the product, can knock out the forms and put together an application or a petition handsomely, quickly, and efficiently. The minder minds the communications, the ethical propriety, the expectations, and make sure that everything is tidy when it goes to the client relationships. The finder is the oxygen to a law firm, and that is the person who finds the oxygen, if you would. There's nothing to mind or grind if the finder doesn't find something. A law firm needs all three to be successful. And I believe it needs an intergenerational effect also. Although there's new systems in place, old school means everything when it comes to the professional services. I can't tell you how many times I have to tell clients that we're like doctors. We need to see the x-rays, we need to see the patient before we give you an opinion. We can give you the skinny if we want and quote you a range of a fee, but we're not doing justice to the nuance of everybody's life, the points of exposure they have, the eligibility they have to do something either through the family side or the business ledger or other provocative applications. So, ultimately, I can tell you that you may aspire, and you're not going to be a good finder unless you've minded and grinded for many years. Frankly speaking, I never looked at the transcripts of lawyers that we hire because I like to see how they got where they got now and appreciate that each person's journey is different. I myself didn't pass the bar the first time around, and I ended up with all kinds of challenges with standardized exams, and I compensated for it in developing personality and relationships with clients. And these days, the work is not hard. It's better to have somebody more organized who can explain things to clients, and there's always other talent in the practice that can compensate if you put a team together to support a client. And as you develop your practice, you want to not just have best practices in the deployment of the work product, but also in the way you handle clients, being more gracious to them and appreciative, because they're the actual building, they're the building blocks for the next generation. They're your billboards. They're walking around singing your praises. And there's no point in getting the job done and having somebody aggravated about you because you just cut off a tree that could have grown even more plentiful.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And then, well, were those kind of issues with the bar and everything, did that play a role in why you wanted to start teaching law? Because you actually teach business immigration law at a community school, Cordoza Law School.
It's it was a labor of love. That university was the Yeshiva University, is where my father went to college. Again, where he taught for 33 years, and I met my wife in his class. And then two of my kids took my class. So how do you say thank you to an institution? And if you recognize the influencers in your life, that was a big one in our culture and in our family and in our professional life. So paying it forward is critical. And mind you, I have hired students through the years and some of them are leading different departments and different offices around the nation. We're in New York, New Jersey, Miami, by appointment only, in LA and Tel Aviv. So I've been able to build these platforms because of students, and paying it forward and making sure that people understand, that they have an obligation not just to put money in their pockets and to keep a law firm alive, but to also give back to the bar and to set the stage. When Dad represented John and Yoko, the Bar Association, when they saw a dip in law school admissions, asked my father to write a book. And it was the story of a scholar and a dreamer. My dad had no idea who John and Yoko are. The book is still available on Amazon for those of you that want it. It's John Lennon versus the USA. And he not only impacted John's immigration case, which was a 5-year battle. And you can say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. That stands up from the Imagine song. It was John and Dad that discovered the whole notion of prosecutorial discretion. I teach it. It's the Lennon doctrine in law school. So this was the story of one man who toiled on behalf of a client. And you have to see the way Dad kept his files and meticulous notes and briefing the case. And it's just a classic lawyer's skill. And as a specialist, always humble through all the years. He brought home now DACA, where a president years later relied on what Dad and John discovered and saved about 1 million young people. So you can say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. There are 1 million people out there because of the stewardship of one lawyer. And Dad would tell my students, and I would hear him when I was a student in his class, that you work each case that you have with the same fulfillment and gumption that you would for a Beatle or a rock star. And our clients are rock stars, and the staff in our office are rock stars. And when I realized that I'm around all these rock stars, it's hard to not treat people and the experience that we're in with anything less than reverence. First, it's fun. You should see the build out of our offices, the way we've developed them with big murals and music, and we're trying to create a fun environment. Second, I try to encourage people to stay in their happy space and bring it into their legal life. You like photos, you like entertainment, cuisine, you like guitars, music. You can build out a practice so that you're ensconced in the worlds of people that are fun. We have a huge inventory of tattoo artists and realtors and all the different things that are fascinating to me. So where the law might be boring, we built out exciting people to make the law come out alive and to develop yet another generation. So to those that are out there, I can just say to you, pay it forward by not only helping yourself, but helping another generation of people behind you. Because if we all do this notion of what our founding parents and documents envisioned becomes a more perfect union when it comes to the differences in politics and immigration, but we also have a more professional bar for the next generation too. And I think the tidier we are with the lawyers that are coming out of the law schools in the future, and the best practices that we deploy in behalf of our clients, the better our nation will be in the future as well.
Yeah, that's good. So really, you're making decisions for people that aren't even born yet. I think that's kind of the mentality I'm seeing.
Crazy story. My next door neighbor in Englewood, the housekeeper could get a green card, but the daughter couldn't. But the daughter was pregnant, and my father turns to her in an earlier iteration and said, 21 years from now, when you have that child will be able to petition for you if you keep a low profile and you're in touch with us. And sure enough, boom. 21 years, knock wood, I've had the privilege where that conversation came to fruition. And don't kid yourself. Your neighbors are clients or can refer you to clients, and the relationships and the influence that you can have, and that I can repeat a story like that about my father is personal good fortune for me, but there's so many people out there that are inspirations in our field. Find a mentor, find one, hook your wagon to them, and the world is your oyster.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, opportunities everywhere, especially they call it the land of opportunity for a reason. I actually got into immigration law because I went to a meditation retreat and met an immigration lawyer who we still work with today. And of course, he's got his whole immigration story too. And so it's, yeah, it really does come full circle.
Everybody has a story.
Oh, yeah.
And when I saw Dad write his book, I wanted to get my story out. My book is Safe Haven in America, Battles to Open the Golden Door, also available on Amazon. Both of them are generally a package that people get, and there are about 13 or 14 significant defections and whistleblowers and immigration cases. And I talk about Dad's handling and the field for young lawyers. Starting lawyers in the field may draw good conclusions and how to build practices from that as well. Write your own book and think that you're not just living your life, but that what you're doing is going to have great human interest. And I think your clients, your family, and the bar will profit from it as well.
Yeah. And what profits can be personal too. It doesn't always have to be money. And then, as you're building a business too, it's, I don't know if you've ever read the book, There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics, but any business that lasts generationally or for years, they have to be ethical. I mean, it's
ethics is critical. And, I'm fortunate that I have my father as my partner, my wife as my life partner, and my son to kind of be that next generation to kind of keep best practices up. He's a millennial. So the experience that he has is going to be very different than the one that my father developed, and making sure that you're branded and that you're found, that your core is discernible, whether it's through social media or through clients, is one of content. And ultimately, I credit it to both strong relationships and results. You can't afford to lose cases, which means you can't take on frivolous cases, and you have to be transparent so that in the relationship part of the ledger, you're not only deemed to be ethical, but genuine. People can cut through the genuineness. It doesn't matter that we represented John Lennon in our practice in the 1970s. If our fees are not approachable and we're not really connected to people.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I imagine you're also balancing quite a few things because you're also the mayor of the city you live in too, Englewood, New Jersey. And so as you're kind of making these decisions, but I mean, you kind of had the family path and everything, but do you feel like if you didn't have that family background, you would have still pursued, this field and area, even if you didn't have the background of having a dad being an immigration lawyer and all the history and everything?
So, excellent question. I also had this interest in public service. My brother too. My brother's a rabbi, and the truth is, there was no reason that it couldn't do both. For a while, I had a mixed brand. Is he going to fix the pothole as mayor? Is he going to get me a green card? And when I got a green card for somebody's housekeeper, I got an orchid sent to my house for the weekend. If we fixed a pothole, I didn't do it fast enough. I didn't do it properly enough, and I was on people's mouths. But social media has it so that we can brand ourselves accordingly. And it's weird, but it works. And people understand that. And I have influence in the political world that I'm able to bring in and thought into the legal world. And in the legal world, I think the talent of being a good lawyer helps you develop the trust and be a problem solver in the political world. So they go hand in hand with one another. It's just finding more hours in the week. I'm fortunate to only sleep about 3-4 hours a night. So I'm able to make up for my distractions during the day. They do go hand in hand. The coming of all worlds was when my father held his father-in-law and my grandfather, his dad's Bible, and I got sworn in on a Bible that was secreted out of Hitler's Holocaust. And here I wasn't only helping the next generation of immigrants come to the United States, but I was going to have a seat at a table where governance and making good policies for a local municipality is everything. People also know their mayor, their governor, their president, and the executive component of public service is something that's always fascinated me. So I don't feel conflicted. I feel that they are symbiotic with one another. I'm an EMT, so I run on medical calls for the last 32 years, and teaching and all these other interests kind of go with each other. If you're smart enough to marry up where somebody wants you to be the best you can be, you just have to make sure that you carve out special time for that special person. And it's about making good choices. And if you notice, there's a common streak. Somehow my mom and dad got my brother and I to do things for other people. I think when you give, you get. And if you try it and you live by that mantra, you're going to be able to monetize relationships without appearing too transactional. And that's the only thing I can say is I have, thank God, my hair, but it's gray. That as I get older and I worry about things, my shoulders are able to absorb more responsibility, but only if I do things right to those around me and for myself. We've gone through some significant challenges through the time. We had somebody who not only committed a crime, but my partner had to wear a wire and the FBI arrested him and he went to jail. Bad things happen to good people. But if you set up strong shoulders and you have a good ethical name, you'll be able to surmount challenges. And we realize as we get older, we have less control over certain things that organically and naturally kind of devolve. But the question is, how are you set up for the challenges that you can surmount, and can you rely on people? No better lesson than during the pandemic, Ian, where on March 19 or March 18, it was the last day we were going to show up to the storied building that we're in since 1959, where I had cameras looking at a FedEx box, seeing if a package came in, get somebody with a mask and gloves at the time to go get the package, scan it, get it to somebody, communicate with people in Zoom and so forth. It was just a surreal experience. I started taking notes because I saw the amount of emails were diminishing, the mentality of our staff was diminishing, our nation was making big mistakes when it came to our immigrants. And I then began to realize we surmounted this in the past. When it came to the war on terrorism, we surmounted pirates in the high seas with the alien and sedition laws, and we surmounted the war on terrorism. We'll surmount a pandemic, but it means that law students and lawyers in the field have to develop those shoulders so that they can suborn more. And we have that capacity if you have either a good partner, good talent in your practice, or most importantly, you marry up whoever it is that you spend your life with, that they would want to raise your banner rather than become a competition to it. So I'm happy to speak to anybody who listens to this and be a source of support. We're always looking for talent as well, Ian, and I really do appreciate the questions that you asked of me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here, Michael. If anyone wants to reach out to you, your name is Michael Wilds. So if you can just give us a bit of information on your book, the best way to reach out to you, and then your firm and everything, in case people want to
so
get.
The firm is Wilds and Weinberg. It's we're at 53rd and Madison is the mothership. We're also in Englewood, New Jersey, in Aventura, in Miami, and by appointment only in Los Angeles and Tel Aviv. The best way to reach me is michael@wildslaw.com. That's MICHAEL at the last name Wilds, WILDES, LAW.com. The website is wildslaw.com. My personal cell phone, and I share this with constituents because I consider people I govern in Englewood to be an extension of my family, law practitioners, staff, students, and colleagues to also be extended parts of our family. My personal cell phone is 347-203-6355. Again, 347-203-6355. Call me, text me if I could be of service, if you need a thought, or if you're looking for a new home. We're always looking for talent.
All right, amazing, Michael. Well, it's certainly a pleasure having you on here. For everyone watching this, please reach out to Michael. Go online, get his book. He obviously has generations of knowledge related to the field. And also, if you're watching this and you're just maybe a regular business guy, you don't know what direction you want to go, feel free to reach out to Immigration Finder as well. We'd love to help you. We solely work with immigration firms, and we will talk to you all later. Thank you again, Michael.
Pleasure. Ciao. To be continued.